Sorry, y'all. I had some behind the scenes weirdness. So I'm hoping that you guys can. Let me make sure this is turned on. I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. I'm sure you'll type in if you can't, but I'm pretty sure my microphone looks like it's set up. So anyway, welcome to the live stream. Today I'm going to finish up that circular weaving that I started last week, and I'm also going to talk about how I plan my art for next year and give you some tips on how maybe you might want to plan your art for next year. Anyway, so I'm going to be multitasking, which I don't know if that's really a good idea, but we'll find out. Anyway, so hello, Carly, and whoever else. Give a shout out. Tell me where you guys are from. I'm Stacy Budge Camison. I'm a weaver here in the Raleigh area of North Carolina. And all right, so first things first. Let me show you what I've been working on. Wait, I'm going to switch the camera because I'm going to talk and then do this, but I'm going to switch the camera so you can see this. See, this is what I didn't get anything else done on this piece. It actually goes this way. There we go. Anyway, I didn't get anything else done since we talked last. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize I was going live until yesterday because my week just flew by for some reason. Anyway, and I just have just a little bit left to go on this piece, and I think I'm going, this is some of what I think I might use. Oh, Oregon. Oh, I wish I was in Oregon right now. It looks like it's just lovely over there. Hi from Wisconsin, Karen. Hey, Karen. One of my best friends just moved to Wisconsin, I believe. Anyway. All right. So these are some of the things I might add to this little section. And even considering doing some of these, I don't know if you guys can see the sparkle in these dreads. They look like, you know, rat tails until you see the shiny gold in there. All right. And then I've got this little piece. I thought this color kind of really goes well with the tile. And then this gray. I'm trying to keep it relatively neutral with the exception of this. So we'll see what happens. All right. But first, let me tell you, this time of year, I tend to start to think about planning my next year, and a lot of that has to do with because I like to start my year ready to go. I mean, some people make their resolutions on January 1st, but when I'm planning art and business and just what I want out of my year, I think I'm going backwards on this. I need to go under. See, multitasking. Maybe this isn't a great idea. I want to have plans in place, and a lot of times when you're planning business or art or marketing, or even just planning on how you're going to advance just your artwork in general. And hey, Epiphany London, please remind me what your name is. I know I've seen you on here a lot, and I really appreciate you showing back up. Anyway, when you're planning your art, a lot of times, just kind of running from the hip, I think, is not a real effective way of getting some stuff done. And so I try to plan ahead. Now, just a little background. Before I started doing fiber art and making a business out of it, I used to design books. And the books that I designed, those projects usually lasted anywhere from 4 months to a year. So we would have to plan things way in advance. You see, I'm really liking the way this is looking. Don't you like the way that stripe? Yeah, that stripe's really kind of adding something. So what I would do, Sue from Indiana, thank you. I'm going to remember that for next time, Sue. Anyway, so what So I would, we would have these big planning sessions beforehand, and that kind of carried over into this business, especially even if I was just dying like a little bit of stuff. I mean, when you have a business, you kind of need to do a good bit of planning the year before. I mean, that's kind of, I guess maybe a given. But I kind of also find that if I do apply the same principles, even to just developing artwork, it helps you really solidify, that you have a cohesive amount of work, that you're producing and going in the direction you want to go in. All right, so I'm going to give you guys some of the things that I do and that I'm planning on doing to this artwork. I'm really liking the way that this stripe is going, and I also am not seeing my scissors here. Oh, here they are. My husband and I have been sharing this computer, and I don't share electronics very well, especially when they're in my studio space, but it's okay. He's generally good, but sometimes things walk away like scissors. Okay, so I got a lot of the information for planning from Leonie Dawson, and she used to put out these great annual planners that you could buy for like $20. I don't, she's about to close down her little Business Academy stuff and all that type of things, and I don't think she's, I don't like that on that end. I want this little bow to be down here. I don't think Leonie is actually going to be producing those anymore. So, but I'm going to give you some of the information of what she had in those planners, and that I've used a lot of that information to plan my years. For the last 6 years, it's what I've used to grow my business. It's what I've used to change my business. I've used it for all kinds of things. So anyway, so the first thing that she has you do, and which I find to be exponentially helpful, is to assess last year. And I'm turning my phone off because that would really be bad if it started to ring. There we go. So she assesses last year, the year beforehand, and that's really good. I mean, because honestly, a lot of times to really understand where you're going to go, it really, 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 really helps to look at what went right and what went wrong with last year. So the first thing I would do is write down everything that went just great, your accomplishments that you are super proud of from last year. So like for me, a huge accomplishment for the last year was actually learning how to warp a traditional loom, and finally fixing the big loom and the table loom, and buying this big loom over here. That was like a major accomplishment. Oh, hi, Shelly Paris. Hello. Anyway, so that's one of the things, and just list them all, no matter how big or how small. I mean, it could be something as tiny, like another smallish accomplishment for me was actually getting more on schedule with coming down into the studio. And even though that seems like not that big of a thing, it's actually kind of a really big deal. I mean, for me, having some consistency as to when I was down here in the studio was a big deal. And also going live. I mean, I in August, this year is when I really, really started doing these live casts. And I really love it because I'm connecting with you guys more. Anyway, okay. So figuring out all your accomplishments. And just write those down somewhere. And then on another piece of paper, write down everything that went wrong. I mean, some things, may not have gone the way you had hoped. And it could be small, it could be big, just things that you maybe want to try and consider doing differently for the next year. Okay, I'm trying to also decide if I want to do this brown in here. I'm sorry if this feels a little ADD. I just figured that sometimes just watching me weave and or just watching my talking head is just not that exciting. So I'm combining them both. All right. So I also write down what went wrong and make a big old list of what I wish had gone differently throughout the year. One of the things for me that I wish would have gone differently is we have gotten in the habit of filing an extension for our taxes. And I want to get back to filing our taxes without that extension, just on a regular schedule. It's a lot less stressful if I do it that way. So, make a list of all those things that went wrong. And then look at both of those lists and decide how overall do you feel about this last year? I mean, does looking at both of those lists make you feel yay or nay, or somewhere in between, or hopeful, or just maybe in a quick sentence, or even just a word, how did it make you feel? All right, I think I'm going to add this gray, and just kind of, and I think mostly what I want to do is really hold that stuff in there like that, because I like this ribbon, but it might be a little overpowering. And if I put this gray on the outside to bunch that in, it's going to help it a little bit. But I'm going to start it up here as opposed to down here where this little bow area is. And I might not keep that. I might tuck that to the back. Okay, so once you get all of that together and you get an assessment of what your year is, in closing out that year, give yourself some gratitude and forgiveness. Give yourself gratitude for all the things that went right, and give yourself forgiveness for the things that you wish that would have done differently. I mean, that way that you're leaving whatever is in 2018 in 2018, and you can carry forward to start to with a fresh slate for 2019. And I think this is really important. I know it seems a little woo when I did it with Leonie, but you know what? It makes a big freaking difference. Just to give yourself the yays and the, it's okay, we're going to do it better next year. All right. So another thing that you want to do after you get through all of that stuff is to outright look at the hard numbers. If you're in a business, or if you're selling your work or doing your work for a business, then outright look at the numbers. Just get that information together and just look at the numbers, and then also pull together all the work that you did in the last year and look at it as a body of work. Because sometimes, I know for me, I get caught up a lot of times in doing that, in kind of taking for granted the individual pieces that I work on, and I don't necessarily see them as a whole until I pull everything together as a whole. And a lot of times with artwork, seeing things as a whole kind of helps you with your direction, and also might solidify a little more of your branding and where you're going. All right. And also when you're looking at the numbers alongside of that, if you're in business, you can also get a better gauge as to what's working and what's not working, and you're going to use that information when you start to assess for next year. All right. So looking at the numbers and looking at your work as a whole, as a collective of what you did over the years is really important. And just kind of, keep it under your hat, because you're going to use that in a little bit. All right. So as you're starting to assess for next year, one of the most important things, and again, this seems a little woo, I feel like one of the most important things for assessing your next year is to think of how you want next year to feel. Okay? Especially as you're an artist. Do you want to feel accomplished? Do you want to feel at peace? Do you want to feel more rested? Just kind of get in touch with, as you're doing this again next year and you're looking back over your stuff, how do you want to feel? What do you, not just in terms of what you're doing, but how does what you did over the last year make you feel? So, and again, I know that seems a little woo, but I think if you're kind of, especially as artists, if you're going in a direction, trying to figure out a direction on how you should perceive looking at how you want that stuff to make you feel is pretty important. Okay, and if you read a book, there's a book by Danielle Laporte, and it's called Desire Map, and I'll put the link in the show notes. And that book is really good about helping to suss out, thinking about how you want, what you want in your life based on how you want to feel. All right, I'll put that link in the show notes. All right. Also, when you're trying to assess for next year, one of the other first things you should look at is when you looked at your body of work, are there any projects that you need to finish? I know I'm really bad to have a lot of whips. So go through your whips. Is there anything that you need to finish up out of your whips? And why is this weaving not working out? Something. See, I'm trying to multitask. That's what happens when you try to multitask. Okay, I'm getting something over and under twice. Maybe I'll just skip that. Okay. All right. So look and see if there's any projects that you need to finish, or look and see if there's anything that maybe you should just let go of. Like, maybe there's a sweater that just is not going to do it for you, and you want to go ahead and just call it a day and frog it and use the yarn for something else. Or maybe you're working on a weaving and it's just not doing it for you, and you're like putting off actually working on the thing. I know I do that a lot. Just go ahead and cut it off the loom and start something new. So make a list of all that stuff that you need to finish or abandon, and put that on a project list. And hold on to that project list, because you're going to use that again later too. You're adding to it. All right, so also looking at that body of work, is there anything that maybe you need to do to flesh out like a series? Like for me, I have a bunch of these. And, if I'm doing a series, I think I would want at least 8 to 10. I don't think 4 of them are going to be good. I think aiming for 10, it might come out to be 12. It might come out to be 8, but, look at your stuff and see if you can pull out some series of what you're working on. All right. And then also look and I guess write some of those down on your project list, on that project list. And then also I would look and see, are there any techniques you want to explore? Like, this past year I learned how to warp my table loom. That's something that was on my list of what I want to do. Is there something else? Like, do I want to explore felting? Maybe felting is something that I can add to this list. Is there anything that you want to learn to add to the techniques, or something, is there a big project that you want to make that's going to require learning some new skills? All right. 3. Okay. So one of the other things that I do when I assess my year to come is I look and I see, has my audience changed? I know in the past couple of years you guys are more of like a weaving audience, whereas maybe in years past it was more of a knitting audience. So that's kind of a big deal when you're looking at how you want your year to be. Because then that is going to make a difference on who you market to, and maybe even where you show your work, or where you sell your work, or how you post on social media. Just knowing who you're speaking to is a big deal. And then look at your numbers and decide, or what are your financial goals. That's kind of a big one, and that's like a big scary one for me, is to look at my financial goals and try and guess, because I think I'm always afraid of being wrong, but it's all good, because really, if you don't know where you want to go, then chances of actually hitting a target are going to be a little harder to do. All right. And when you look at your financial goals, think about how you would get there. Do you, like for me, I haven't been selling in a shop, so I might set up shop to sell some of my hand woven stuff, or maybe I'm adding some new classes, stuff like that. So do the numbers, get a cash flow, do the cash flow, and just run the numbers and figure out too, if you've got any new projects, figure out, I'm glad this is helpful. Yay. Figure out if you're, when you run the numbers on your new projects, figure out, a lot of times the numbers don't work out. Like, I had this idea that I was going to do these little woven pouches, and to be perfectly honest, the amount of time that it takes to put into them, I don't know that I don't know that my target audience would pay what it would cost to make a woven pouch, if that makes sense. So, running the numbers is kind of a big deal, and it's okay. It's okay that maybe woven pouches are not something that I would offer, just because, like I said, the time involved in making them would be way more than what I could get back from them. So running the numbers is pretty big. All right. So when you have that information, then you also need to think of how you're going to market your stuff. And here's a couple of numbers. Marketing your stuff means you're trying to get more of your target audience, right? Okay. And there's two type of audiences that I think of when I'm thinking of marketing. I'm thinking of a cold audience, which is people who've never heard of you before, and a warm audience, which I think of as people who are on my email list, right? On a general marketing rule of thumb is, with your cold audience, you probably are going to only get 1 to 2% return on whatever your efforts are. Okay. That's just kind of a standard and a given. So that means that if you are cold marketing to 100 people who've never heard of you before, chances are you'll get maybe 1 or 2 sales based on that cold marketing, because it takes people like 5, 6, 7 times. They need to see you a few times before they'll buy from you. All right. But if you're marketing to your warm audience, it increases to about 20%. So that's things to keep in mind. So that's why it's important to get people on an email list and to be consistent with social media. So with that information in mind, and looking at your financial goals, then what kind of social media and email marketing do you need to do to generate those sales? I know it feels like a lot of math. It is a lot of math. It really is. It's kind of crazy. All right. So that's some things to take into consideration. All right. So now that you've done all that crazy back work that seemed like a bit of overkill, it really wasn't. So based on that, you take that project list that you already started and start adding to it. What do you need to do? What do you need to do to reach your financial goals and your marketing goals that will lead to your financial goals, and other project goals that is going to lead to, all that stuff is really intertwined. And just make your project list. How much product did you want to crank out? What was the goal of the things that you wanted to learn, right? Like, okay, let's say, for instance, like I said, I wanted to get into felting a little more. Well, I'm going to have to schedule time to do that if that's one of my goals, right? So put that on the project list. say you decide, well, I need to increase my email list because I need to reach X amount of people, and that's going to mean, that more people are seeing my stuff, right? So you're going to, that's another project is something that's going to increase your email list, with like maybe doing some advertising on Facebook, or doing a YouTube channel and putting the email information in your YouTube channel. Stuff like that. All right, so make your big project list. Anything, also too, if you're doing any shows, do you have any teaching opportunities that you want to do? Just put it all in, and just go ahead and make that project list long. I mean, it may seem overwhelming. Don't get overwhelmed. But, just go ahead and make that project list, because then you're just going to turn around and prioritize it. So once you get the big project list, then look and see what projects are really important. Which ones, you kind of decide which ones are the ones that you really, really have to do. What ones are like, I can do them, I really would like to do them, but, if I need to back burner it, it's okay. And just kind of get that together. And then take the ones that are the big do it now projects and reverse engineer them with your tasks. I mean, what needs to get done to make that happen? To get here, to get to like I'm going to learn felting. So, my goal would be to have a line of felted stuff, right? So to do that, I would need to take a class. I would need to, practice, doing stuff, and do enough stuff to where I felt that I could, come up with a line of work and market it and just stuff like that. But if the goal, I'm getting ahead of myself. So if the goal is just to learn that felting, what is going to be the measurable part of that you've achieved that goal? And maybe it's that I would come up with 5 pieces that I love. All right, so reverse engineer it. To get 5 pieces, you'd need to actually make the work. You'd need to do the prototypes. You'd need to learn how to do the work. You'd need to take the classes. Anyway, reverse engineer that. And when you get those projects with all the steps down, then add it to a calendar. And in your calendar, be sure to include things like, do you have any big events coming up? My nephew's getting married in March, so I can guarantee that my March is going to be a little busy. So, I need to schedule that time in for that. Or maybe that, you want to take it easy when your kids get out of school, so maybe the first couple of weeks of summer, you go light on the projects. Anyway, but once you have down the information of what you do and don't want to do, what the rest of your life schedule's in there, then you can kind of add some dates for the projects that you want to do. I mean, and the steps that you need to do. And it helps to not like if that, again, back to the felting example, if I want to learn how to do these felting projects, I can put down the big due date of I want to have that done by October. Okay, but I also need to have some interim deadlines. I want to take that class by April. Find the class and take that class by April. I want to, have 2 months of practice and come up with at least a project that I love by June. Just schedule it out. It really, really helps to put all that stuff in your calendar. All right. And the final thing, wait, did I go through this? Oh gosh. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys. I think the final thing that I found in Leonie's workbooks that were super important, I don't know, do I like that? it's kind of, you see, it's kind of picking up that black edge. Let's see, those black edges. So yeah, I think I like that. The final thing that I would do is decide what your reward system would be when you accomplish your projects. And I don't mean like you want a reward system for your big projects, but I think you would also want a reward system for like the little steps. I mean, that's kind of big. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It could be like, you know, if I get this class done, or if I'm outline a tutorial that I want to do. If I outline this tutorial, then I'm going to treat myself to go into the park and walking the dog. I mean, something that's just to honor that you actually did that. That's kind of huge. Give yourself some kudos for doing the work. And the other thing that I think is really important is to also write down for in 2019 what's going to happen when the shit hits the fan, because we all have those days, right? So what happens when, you know, the dog has diarrhea and you have cramps and hot flashes, or, you know, a big fight with your husband or whatever? What's the self-care that you're going to take? You know, what are the steps to self-care, and that it's not going to make it feel like your projects goes off the rails? So let's say that, you know, you had planned to you know, work in your studio on this big project, but you're going to have one of those days and you might not make that deadline. Then what are you going to do? I mean, for me, the first thing would be to break out the schedule and see where I can shift things around. You know, I mean, I usually try to build in some slack time for myself, just for that type of reason. And a lot of times I'll end up using that slack time to just, you know, do some weaving that I love or whatever. But look and see, you know, where I could shift my schedule. And then what are the things that you like to do that would self-soothe? I mean, for me, it's, you know, diffusing a certain essential oil that would help my mood. Or it might be, you know, making myself a cup of hot tea. Or it might be, you know, going for a walk, or emailing a friend, or whatever it is to self-soothe. And it might be things that you think, oh, I know this stuff. But sometimes when you're in the thick of like life, you know, handing you your ass, then sometimes you get in a panic when you think in terms of what you have to do. So if you can write down the steps, and it's almost kind of like a, you know, your emergency break glass when needed kind of thing, and then that way it's all in place, and you'll know that it's okay because there's a plan. There's a plan in place to take care of yourself as you need to, and that's important. It's important for artists to really kind of take care of yourself, because, you know, we're emotional people, and sometimes things don't go as planned, and sometimes that's okay. But at the same time, you know, then we don't have to be like the flighty artist and let all our plans go to hell. So anyway, so that's my advice for how to plan for the year. And I know it seems like a lot, and it is a lot, and that's the reason why I started. You know, I started it actually in September, you know, because as you start to assess your year and you start to make like really big plans, you kind of need the time to do that. And I like to be able to come back from the holiday ready to go and hitting the ground running, and not trying to figure it out at the beginning of the year. So anyway, so that's what I would do. And I'll double check and see if Leonie is doing that workbook one last time. She might be. I don't know. And if not, I don't know. Is this something that you guys would want to see written out? I could totally do that. I could put it on the projects to write out how I plan for my year. So anyway, does anybody have any questions? I know I like I said, I threw a lot at you, and look We're making progress. I think that's coming out kind of cool. Yeah, that gray is kind of picking up the black clay a little bit. But I'm wondering if I should add some white to that edge. I might add some white to that edge. Did I pull the white out? I don't think I won't pull the white out. Yes. Yes, Carly, yes. Yes as in that you want to, it would help you if I wrote that out. I could make like a little ebook or something. That would, like a workbook. I mean, that's what she did, was a workbook. You know, I could do a workbook that would help for artists. Because I think it's really important to plan your projects. I know, it's interesting because, okay, so I go to this clay studio, right, to work on these things, and also just like doing things like making mugs. Oh, look at this one. This is one of my favorites. Yes, I would like to see you plan the workbook. Okay, cool. I will totally do that. This one you can see the handle. Oh, I'm trying to see if I can see. The handle broke off of this. But this is one of the mugs that I worked on at the studio. Anyway, I can tell the people who kind of are mindful about their projects, because some of the artists, their work is kind of haphazard, and there's not a lot of cohesiveness to their work. And then some of the artists, I really, 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 I mean, I can look at the shelves and know exactly whose is what. And that's important when it comes to branding, and also too, it becomes your voice, and you're exploring a project more deeply. And I think it's easier to do that when you're more mindful about your projects and treat it with a little project management. And that's another thing too, is that I've used a lot of different things, but for the most part, I use Asana, which is an app and an online project management stuff, and that helps me break down the projects with to-do lists, and then I can schedule that and just kind of track my projects. And I'll do that for not just the business stuff, but also for managing my work, making sure that I'm, getting the work done that I want to do, and that things are cohesive. And what's going on with this? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. I kind of poked that yarn was catching on that ribbon and dragging that ribbon back. Yay! All right. So are there any questions? I know, like I said, I covered a lot of information here, but I'm just wondering if anybody had any questions about either the weaving or about planning your projects or marketing or anything I talked about. Anything you wanted me to expand it? Yeah, you see, I like that better without that piece. That looks much better. Any questions? And I'm trying to decide if I think it might be done. I'm going to sit with it, because a part of me thinks I want to add a row of white around the edge, but I think, let me get this gray even. Well, that gray might not be bad. Yeah, let me do a line of gray. Hey, I struggle with the time management, more likely to spend an entire day spinning than not touch the wheel for a week or two. Same with dyeing and then weaving. Oh, I know, I totally know what you mean. But let me ask you this, Carly, does that work for you? I mean, if that's, I'll be honest. Sometimes that's the best way to do it. I mean, it might be that's how you need to do it. And that's okay, because a lot of people I know with creative people sometimes, and especially with things like spinning or knitting and dyeing and weaving, is that you kind of it takes longer spells to really get into the groove of things, because it's a labor intensive type of craft. So it's but it's hard to do that day after day. So maybe that's just your rhythm. But if you feel that you're losing track, I mean, if you feel that the time between sessions, you're losing track of where you were. Maybe it's even as simple as just doing some review time. Does that make sense? I mean, because like I said, sometimes I get overwhelmed with, to sit down and do dyeing, it's going to take a lot. So if you just review it and look and just take time just to review what you're doing, and then, putting in your art journal, some thoughts or plans or ideas, then you're just kind of staying in the mindset, but you're not having to worry about the labor intensiveness of when you're working. Anyway, I hope that helps. I'm glad it did. Thank you. You're welcome. So, yeah, I go through that too, especially with dyeing. Even when I had dedicated dye space in a studio, I totally know what you mean, because you know what? There's a lot involved. There's a lot involved in that. And so I would only do, except for when I was preparing for like a show or something, I might only do, maybe a day or two of dyeing a week, and then not do it for a while. So I get it. Anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna put this around this edge. How long have we been on? What time is it? Oh, we've been on about 40 minutes. All right, yeah, we're doing okay. Weaving through this, yay! So let me ask you guys this. What kind of planning tips do you guys do? Do you have any tips that you guys do for planning your year or deciding resolutions as far as your artwork and stuff goes, or your business? Oh yeah, you see, I'm liking making that a little lighter on the edge. I tell you what too, this circular weaving stuff kind of happened on a whim, and it kind of threw a wrench in the schedule for sure. But that's okay, because then, when you have a plan, then you can reassess. And that's another thing too, is reassessing at least every 6 months. Quarterly's better. Every 2 months is even better. Doing some reassessment is really awesome, especially because things happen during the year that might change the path of your work or your business or whatever. And that's another thing too. And I'll put the link down in the show notes. There's a woman, and she has a set of books called Savor Success, and it's like a what do you call it? Like a planner, like a daily planner. And I think they have weekly pages too. But in the daily planner, she has where she says 3 seeds, 3 weeds, and then and she has something called a water cup. So the 3 seeds are, what are 3 things you can do that day that moves your business forward, or your artwork or whatever, and be it researching shows or looking at new materials or new techniques, 3 seeds, contacting somebody that you've been needing to contact, stuff like that. 3 weeds are the 3 things that it's eating those frogs. For me, that's bookkeeping. Ugh, I hate bookkeeping, but if I can at least spend a little time every day with my books, then I'm all the better for it. So that would be one of my weeds. The other would be like answering emails, or things that you really have to do that you kind of stress about a little bit. And then the water cup is the same thing that I talked about, giving yourself that little reward. And she does things like a weekly water cup. Like she might dedicate her dinner with her husband, a nice dinner she has planned out with her husband, and dedicates that that luxury to, finishing a major project or getting something done that she wanted to get done that week. So, and I really like that, because that's like one of a really nice way to honor your work. And even if it's something that you already have planned, I mean, it's a nice way to really, kind of give yourself credit, because a lot of times, as business owners, we don't really give ourselves credit, or even as artists, we don't really give ourselves credit for, doing some of the work. So anyway, there you have it. With your ceramic looms, are the holes spaced by measuring and always in an odd number of holes? I'm wrangling my grandson, but I'm here. Oh, hey, Rosanna, yes. Yeah, the holes, I kind of eyeball them, actually, and yes, they're always odd. But I tell you how I end up doing it is you can see I do one at 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then at 12 o'clock I do 2. So then that way it seems to always set me up to do an odd number, because that starts with 5 instead of 4. And then I space in between. And here you can see where maybe it's these 2. Yeah. And then you see I have the 3 here, and then 4 here and 4 here. I just kind of eyeball the spacing. And just when I do, so once I have those 5 in place, then I'll do, on each side, to make sure that it stays on. That's just my weird way of doing it. That's my OCD. Yeah, but it is always an odd number, and I don't understand it, because it seems logical that an even number would be the way to go when you're weaving, but for whatever reason in this situation, an odd number keeps you from having to go over and under the same amount of yarns at one time. Oh yes, okay, great. You're quite welcome. All right, so I think I might be ending this, because I'm kind of okay with the fact that it's right on that edge. I don't know. You know what I'm going to do before I tie that off, because I kind of like leaving a little bit of space so you can see the edge of the loom here and see, the depth back here. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm kind of liking it right to the edge too. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to put this, I'm just going to tuck this in the back. Look at the back, how much of a mess that is. But the way I see it is that you don't see it from this side. Anyway, I'm going to set that, and I'm going to actually leave this on my desk for a few days, except for that's going to put that up. Leave it on my desk for a few days and sit with it and try to decide if I want to pull that in tight or to leave that loose. You're quite welcome, Karen. I'm glad you guys enjoy that, because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes people just want to see the art and that's it. But I think there's not a lot of resources for maybe there's some, but it's hard to find resources for artists to do business. And I tell you, when I was in school, they certainly didn't teach us this. I had to learn all this on my own. And I think sharing that information is important for artists. So anyway, I hope it helps you guys. And I'll put together something, like I said, Leonie's really helped me a lot, and I really hate that she's not going to be doing them anymore. But anyway, but I'll look and see if she's doing this one last year. All right, I'm going to sign off, but thanks for joining me, you guys. And I'll put the show notes in the blog post and link that in the description down below in the YouTube channel. And I will see you guys next week. If there's anything that you would like to see demoed, by all means, either leave me a comment here or shoot me an email and let me know. All right. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. Whoop, whoop, whoop.